All righty. Welcome to MSP Initiative Live. It is Thursday. Today we bring our friends on from Datto. We have Des on, and we'll be shortly joined by her colleague from the biz dev team over at Datto. But hey, it's another Thursday. Des, I think you're based out of Canada, right?
I am. We got snow yesterday. Might be a white Christmas. Pretty excited about
Oh,
that.
there you go.
Good
Very
old
nice.
Calgary, Alberta, eh?
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. So I know you're for the people who don't know you personally or haven't run into you before, why don't you give a little bit of your background, right? How did you get started in the channel? Like, why,
Yeah,
how did you,
all of those good things.
yeah,
Perfect.
exactly. Just give me a little quick down memory lane.
Sweet. So I've been in the channel for, I think it's been about 5 years now. Super excited. And I walked into Passportal. I'm out of Calgary, Alberta. I walked into Passportal, met Dan Wensley, and was like, no, I don't need a job. I'm good. I would just wanted to see what's going on here. And by the end of that conversation, I was like, I'll come work here. This sounds like a great idea. This channel thing sounds amazing. And so I've been in the industry ever since. I now work for Datto under Rob Ray. So I'm on the biz dev team with Mike DePalma and the other bunch of us. And my background is in sales. So I have this background in sales and traveling and people and talking and just yakking a lot, which is all good. And then now as a CDM role, normally we see each other on the road once a week, traveling 70% of the time. And now my husband's never spent this much time with me, and he's questioning his past opportunities and choices. But now we're here in Calgary, and it's awesome because we've got a lot of there is some really good positive stuff, like getting to see you once a week and getting to do all these events and seeing so many more people than you would have actually in person. So it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, you tend to do like multiple, you're a multitasker, right? You sometimes doing two or three things at once now.
Oh, so many times. The number of times I hop on like one of these calls and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually working 3 events right now. It's great.
No, totally get it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you've done actually a lot, right? For people who follow you online, you've actually really got creative with the online videos and, kind of cheeky, but also business relevant type stuff. How hard was the transition, right? Because like for somebody who's on the road 3 out of 4 weeks a month to, hey, now I'm behind a screen all day long. I mean, that's got to be a big shift for you.
Yeah. If you're asking me if I sat and cried like in a ball, that didn't happen. It did. But yeah, it was definitely a huge transition. Like even in my life, this is the longest time I've spent in one place in at least 15 years, if not longer. I've never spent a whole winter in Canada, and I'm kind of nervous about that because sometimes it gets to -40 and it's really cold for a really long time. But at the very beginning of this, the first thing I started to see is that there was so much sadness in people's lives and social media, and there's this huge weight on people's shoulders because everyone is kind of in the same place differently. We're going through the same thing. So I wanted to see what I could do to make people laugh. And then people kept telling me that they liked it, and then I kept doing it. So I've done videos like I built a cardboard airplane out of like a refrigerator box. And I used that several times just because I miss being on an airplane so much, where I would sit and do my work in an airplane that's cardboard. And it made people laugh. And so I've done a lot of things. I don't know if you saw my mimosa. I did how to make a proper mimosa video.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm going to have to go check that out. So, I mean, for you specifically, right, there's got to be a ton of just Zoom fatigue, right? I mean, if you're doing three sessions at a time, I mean, what do you do to just get through the day, right? Because they say that being behind the screen and being active like that for 8 hours straight is really a lot more taxing than being in person, right?
I agree 100%. Very early on, and I know this isn't easy for everybody, but it's something that I had to make a conscious effort of, and then something I think that everyone should do. And you don't realize that until you do it, the difference. But I have specific, on Sundays, I don't pick up my phone. I refuse to be on any sort of social media, phone, even if people, unless it's important, like I don't even have the volume on, so I rarely even texting. And that's really important just because, like you said, we're used to being in person. I have not spent this much time in front of a computer in my entire life. And so it is exhausting. There's times that even we have family nights where people are like, where my family is like, let's do a card Zoom night. I'm like, please. But moments like those are important. So you need to like have, within Datto, we have our Wednesdays where we have a low Zoom call. So you don't take Zoom calls on Wednesdays early in the day, or you have less. We're supposed to, we try our best. But all of those things kind of help. And then also weekends. So making sure I turn my phone off or on silent and get off of it at 7 p.m. So I have 2 or 3 hours before I go to bed and I'm offline. It doesn't matter. And it's important because I even see like we're a part of a lot of the same Facebook groups, and sometimes our companies get called out in these Facebook groups, and you want to respond because you have this industry and the channel of all of our partners means so much to us. But also on this other hand, you're like, then you're on all the time, and you get this emotion tied to those responses and those things that happen, and it puts you in this place in your head that's not really good for you. Those are kind of like the things,
right? I mean, that's
yeah,
the right.
yeah, 24/7 all the time.
So for people who, for people who don't understand what's happening in Canada right now, right? A lot of people are US based. What's the situation, right? Are you guys allowed out? Are you guys allowed to travel a little bit? I mean, I know the border, like you can't walk across the border. I hear you can still fly across the
Yeah.
border to go from Canada to US with quarantining and stuff. So just give everybody just, a general lay of the land just so that they know what's happening up north.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of different rules and everything changes, province, just like state to state, province to province. Everything changes. The really good things that they're doing right now is, so in Canada, we don't have the rapid testing like you guys do. We don't have the testing for if you've already had it, the antibody testing. We don't, at least in Alberta, I shouldn't speak for all of Canada, that would be uneducated of me, but at least in Alberta where I live, those things don't exist. In Calgary and then a couple of cities, they released at the airports where they do testing. So I can go to the US. Prior to this, what would happen is I would every time I went to the US and came home, I had to stay home for 2 weeks. You weren't allowed to leave your house, which also meant Trevor. And so that was one of the reasons why I'm like, I'm not going to travel for 3 days and then come home for 2 weeks and not be able to do anything. But then now they have the testing. So as soon as you come back from the US, you get tested at 3 different airports if you fly into Calgary, and then you take a test 2 days later. If both of those come back negative, then you are free to do whatever you want. So that's changing a lot. Sadly, Calgary just got locked down. We just got notified that Christmas is canceled. So no more Christmas. The rules in place here or in Alberta across the province is if you're a couple, you're only allowed to hang out with the 2 of you. You're not allowed to hang out with anybody else or other families or anything. They're shutting the bars and restaurants were open actually for an extended period of time. They're shutting those down on Sunday. So all bars and restaurants will be shut down. Gyms, everything like that are shut down for 4 weeks. And then if you're a single person, you're allowed to go to one other person's house, but you can't change who that person is. So you're only allowed to visit one person. And all of those are finable. So if your neighbor calls on you and sees like you have a car that doesn't belong to you in the house, the peace officers are now able to come and ticket you. So they can come to your house, knock on your door, and you can get a fine for that. So, and that was just Thursday that they announced it. So you can imagine everyone's a little bit stressed.
I guess there's a rush to all the restaurants and bars. That's what I think's happening.
Yeah. So we're going later.
Fair. Well, have a few for us for sure.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mike.
Yeah, sorry I'm a little late. I had a webinar that actually got a lot of Q&A, which is a good thing. It was an end user webinar, so it's a good thing. Good problem to have. But thank you for having me.
No, that's great. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing I asked Des to do. For people who don't know you personally, Mike, have never run out to you in the industry, why don't you give like a little walk down memory lane? How did you start? Where did you get into industry? Kind of catch us up.
Yeah, so I'm the Senior Channel Development Manager at Datto. I actually got pretty lucky with Datto. I'm born and raised in Norwalk, where our headquarters is. And so I've had a lifetime of sales experience, close to 20 years at this point. And there were some openings. This was when the company was about 300 or so employees, and we were growing rapidly. And I got in just as a salesperson and moved over to business development it'll be close to 5 years ago now in January. So it kind of gives me a good advantage coming from the non-IT space, because when I do webinars like this with end users, which is the vast majority of my time, I can kind of speak their language. I explain it how it was explained to me, a layperson. So it kind of helps me with that regard. But yeah, I'm on the same team as Des, normally out on the road. That's how I know you so well, George, going around doing events and all that type of stuff. So I've now been grounded. We just crossed our 150th end user webinar since April 1st. So it's a lot. I had 3 of them this morning. So that's why I'm a little bit late here, but it's good thing to have. Good to be busy on that regard. So thank you.
Yeah, right on. Let's start with you already got somebody saying, I need your wine bar.
Every event,
empty out a little bit here during the holidays.
100%.
Both him and Eric have the best wine bars in every event or booze cabinets. That's the first thing. I'm going to change my bookcase, because I thought it made me look smart, to like a wine booze cabinet, just to be part of the group.
Just to be part of the team.
You guys a couple of beer mugs. That'll help round out your operation there. Just shoot me your addresses via email or something, and I'll get them out to you. All right, so let's take some lessons from 2020, right? Obviously, hard pivot to online. I'm going to ask some hard questions, and we'll work backwards from there. So, in-person events, which include MDF events, and you guys do a lot of market development fund events with your partners, all fizzled out, right? Like that just went up in smoke. So for the MDF event spend, if it was possible, where were your partners able to pivot, right? Were they able to reuse some of that potential, funding to do something else other than in-person events?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm actually messaging one of the attendees here, Ron. Yeah, we did a lot of, with these webinars that we did, the 150, plus webinars we've done, a lot of them have been $25 Uber Eats cards for all the attendees, maybe raffle prizes. We actually have gotten kind of creative, which is cool. I've probably done a half a dozen over the last couple of months where they're tied to like a wine tasting, remote wine tasting. We shipped out bottles of wine, partnered with the partner went and found a winery. They all had their sommeliers, or however you pronounce it, come talk about the wine. So we did it, either I did a brief presentation up front and we switch over to that, or the better idea, I think, is they do a little intro, first glass of wine goes down, then they present, and then I get to come up after a couple glasses of wine and do my thing. So that's been cool. Even like food cooking lesson. This guy did a cooking lesson. Everybody had their laptops in their kitchen, and it was cool. So there's creative things like that we've been doing. So the funding was still there. But we're doing, we have an MDF panel every Friday. It's full of requests. I mean, that's an hour-long call, which is cool,
That's awesome. So, generally speaking, do you feel that the people, there's a lot of people who say, I didn't know there's MDF available, or, how do I start the process? Is there what is your best recommendation after going through all of 2020 and now thinking about 2021? If you are, and maybe this isn't specific to Datto, this is just generally for the industry, you're working with a channel vendor, where do you start? Who should you be talking to? And when they come to ask and put the hand out saying, hey, need a little bit of help, what should they be armed with to give them the best shot of getting some help?
I'm always looking for a plan. So I always take a step back and say, okay, what is your marketing plan for Q1 or all of 2021? Let's put it all down in some bullet points. And then we start to dive into, all right, we got this money. Here's money that I can provide. There's some things I can't fund. There's some things I know I can. And then you start to talk about, all right, what is this?
Let me pause you for a second. What are the things that you can't fund?
Mostly third-party consultants. So we have partners that'll come to me and say, hey, we're going to hire a temp to come make cold calls for this. We can't pay for that temp's time. We can't pay for those, and we get a lot of those requests. The hard cost, even like LinkedIn ads, we can pay for the hard cost of whatever that LinkedIn ad is. But if you're working with a consultant that's got their fee on top of it, we can't. And one of the reasons was we were seeing these consultants out there that would give their invoice or give their proposal and say, yeah, but Datto will cover 3,000 of it. And they would say that all the time. And so you start doing that. And so we had to pump the brakes on it. So the hard costs are what we can fund. But I want to ask them, like, okay, what's the end game here? It's great to do a webinar, but who do you want at this webinar? I don't care if there's 100 people. If they're not decision makers or they're coming for a free Uber Eats card, it's a waste of everybody's time. I'd rather have 12 people on a wine tasting these are the perfect seat size industry. I've talked to them. This will push them over the edge. And we don't talk about Datto for the most part. You could ask, I know Ron's messaging. It's a more of an educational piece with the call to action of, hey, let the partner come in, do an assessment, find out. We judge results more on if you bring on a new client, it doesn't have to be a Datto client, because eventually we're hoping you expand your stack and you sell Datto, but it doesn't have to be solve that initial need and then expand it. So that's one of the misconceptions, that they think it has to be like this Datto pitch. I don't even talk about a Cirrus or Alto or anything like that.
No,
Des is the same thing. Des is just much happier and smiley than me.
advice. So obviously backup is a pretty established conversation. Where has the dialogue with these end customers of these partners gone, right? What's the talking points coming into the end of the year and now thinking 2021, what seems to be bubbling up to the top of these 150 webinars?
What's been interesting is, and we've been preaching, I know you probably have too, the idea of co-managed IT. And we've been preaching it to the channel. But now we've actually shifted that into an end user presentation, because we're opening these doors to folks that shut the door. That's what I tell them. How many people have you talked to that are in your CRM systems that said, no, we have an in-house IT team? They're willing to listen now because they just went through a painful 8 months. Now they're willing to listen. So we've got presentations that are targeting those folks. We're not trying to replace you. We're trying to work with you. And we're getting some traction, and that's allowing the channel to move up market. So that's interesting, because that's something I never did prior to the pandemic.
I'm just going to add something there, just on like talking about what to do and how DePalma was talking about, like, we don't care if there's 10, 12 people or 100 people, but sometimes I always talk to these MSPs and they're worried about, well, I'm just going to do a blanket approach. Well, what about, let's focus this webinar specifically at those, your salespeople are talking to them all the time. There's 4 people that they just can't get over the edge. What's the conversation that we can have? What's the presentation that we can tailor just to those 4 people? Because if we can have a better close rate, you get 4 people on and you close 2 of them, that's still good for everybody on board, rather than a blanket approach of you don't even know who's going to be there, which is still a good idea, especially if you're getting your name out and continuing that like branding or brand awareness out there, and making sure everyone around you knows that you're the person to go for education, for security, for those things. But still, those focused approaches, it's worth it.
So basically, the general theme I'm getting here is, don't be a generalist, right? Be very strategic in the people that you're bringing into these situations, because I got to assume that you are tracking ROI on your MDF dollars, right? I mean, if somebody comes to you and it doesn't work, they may not be able to come back again for a while, because there wasn't any turnover for everyone. Yeah,
to some extent, we definitely review them, but I just encourage people not to say, okay, the funds are not coming back my way. It's just, let's do something different. Whatever you didn't work. And I actually like that, because that shows that the partner is forward thinking. Because we have it all the time. We'll do a webinar and 4 people show up and they say, I'm never doing one again, but it's more of like, well, what went wrong? Let's do another one. Or maybe we just do some recordings. I've been doing 1 million recordings as well to send out in newsletters or email blasts, or ahead of a QBR. Hey, we want to talk about SaaS protection. I know we're looking at Microsoft 365. Take a look at this. So there's a lot of different ways that, we're doing things. And for my team, where, like you said, we're usually on the road all the time. This is all we're doing. So reach out to us. This is literally 90% of my time is spent doing these webinars with end users. So.
Not fair. All right. So here's another one for you then, a little bit of an interesting one. And again, not going to hold you to it. This is an official company stance. I'm taking your personal.
We're public now, George. I can't say anything.
It's fine. Do you? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Do you personally feel that road shows and your conferences will return in person in 2021? Just a gut feeling. I'm not asking for a company.
For my mental health, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we could say. I mean, my gut instinct says yes. The channel company had a survey, I don't know if you saw it, that just went out talking to the industry about whether they think there's going to be in-person thing. It was actually, I want to say 75% of MSPs said they plan on going to events starting in at least Q3. Some of them are ready to go now. So it's all going to be driven by whether there's going to be attendees. I mean, Rob Ray can't wait to get on the road. He's got that tracker of how many days he's been quarantined behind. So yeah, I mean, if the channel says like, yeah, we're ready to go and everything is safe and we could find venues, I think that's the goal. Yeah, I know you're chomping at the bit too, George.
Oh, I mean,
you're already out there.
I'm driving around, like going out, like it's going out of style. So if there is a DattoCon US in 2021, where would that be? Are you able to say that?
I think that's public, right, Des?
Yeah, that's definitely public. I don't remember where it is, but it's definitely public.
For 2021?
Yeah.
Seattle? I think we've telling people. Seattle?
Yeah.
Okay. Seattle. And then if there's a Datto Europe, where is that looking like?
That I don't know. I honestly don't know that one, where it's going to be. Where it was going to be this year, Des?
I don't even remember.
I forget where. I would probably use what. Oh, no, it was going to be in Germany.
Yeah, Berlin, I thought.
Oh, you meant this year. Sorry.
Yeah, what I'm saying. So they might just push that back to, move that would be my guess, because I haven't had any discussions about that.
Fair. Okay. What's changed now that the company is publicly traded from your position?
In my position personally, the biggest fear I have is saying something I'm not supposed to. Every one of our presentations has to have sources, so I can't just throw out stats that come into my mind, which, everybody that's on stage sometimes does that. So it is there. It's more formal in terms of the day to day. It hasn't changed at all. Like I don't feel anything. Maybe Rob at the upper level does. In terms of my day to day, other than the fear that I'm going to get in trouble for saying what I'm not supposed to, I mean, Des, you might disagree, but
no, I agree with you 100%. Or the always worried about my slides. I mean, like, is this all legit information? Can I source all of this? I'm so worried that it's like, or you might accidentally let something slip that's like, because we're so used to just talking and there's statistics you have in your head or news articles that you've read, but then did you actually read it or did someone tell you that? And that way, don't quote me on it. I'm pretty positive, almost.
Well, the running joke is just to pull the curtain back. We talk about how much data we have in the data center. I mean, that's a very hard number to really know. So we always 500 petabytes, 550 petabytes. It sounds right, but now I just pulled it out of my slide deck because we have one of the largest private clouds. Because I don't, that number changes so often that it's a hard number to pin down. That was just like the running joke. Like, we got to really figure this number out because it could change presentation to presentation.
Somebody has to know what it is. You should say, something plus, right? And
yeah, it's more than 100 petabytes.
Yeah, no, I get it. So where for that, so you've done some, you as a company have flipped because obviously you couldn't do events in your various region. Mostly you flipped to these online events, MSP days, you've called them. I assume they've been successful. You've done several of them. I haven't had a chance to see it. So for the people out there that haven't had a chance to attend, generally speaking, what is the focus that Datto is asking their partners to pay attention to moving forward? What's missing? What do they need to know that they don't already know?
What I like about these tech days, and we did the roadshow circuit. I know, George, you've been there. We tried to pile a bunch of things into like a 2.5 hour presentation. People are always saying, well, this is high level stuff. I want to get more into roadmap stuff. I want to get more into the weeds. What these tech days have been great at is, our CISO's on there. Our head of product is on there. And so like our presentation yesterday was 15 minutes out of 5 hours. So because I said, they don't want to hear about what a biz dev guy wants to talk about PSA, So it is much more, and I monitored the chat and I recognize established partners that are like, we didn't know you did this. We didn't know about this integration, And so I think that has gone such a long way because, you take it for granted. Sometimes all these cool features are known by your partners. I'm sure you have the same thing. And these and they've been wildly successful. I mean, 1,800 people, 2,000 people, really good. And I think that's the reason why. I think it's because it's like, we're getting some real granular. How many times you get to hear from a CISO from a global company, I don't know, Des, is that kind of what you're thinking too?
Yeah, I agree. It's each team is responsible for something. So it's really, really cool that you might have like the sales engineers who are like, I hear this all the time. I think people want to hear this. And they have the hands-on experience of the questions and the information they're getting. And we're actually really serious about feedback. So even we've done 3 now, every one of those events has been, the next one's been different because there's been some sort of feedback that people are missing. Like this time prior to this, we had a demo of one Datto, like all of our products, but this, they broke it down to how does it solve these problems? How does that benefit your business? And then the partner panels are another huge big thing because you're bringing in partners who are using the solution and succeeding in it, and how are they doing it? And the number of times, well, every partner panel I've done, people have asked not to connect with me, with the partners afterwards, because like, whatever you're doing is clearly working. Let me find out more information about exactly how you're doing that. Yeah, if we could do MSP Tech Day, I think that we should do that moving forward always, because it's got a lot more value. And especially, just like Mike said, in person, bringing in a technician to do a demo in person with people, although yes, but it's just not as easy. It's not as simple to do that all the time.
No, good point. I mean, there is that's some of the benefit of the virtual, right? You get access to people that you otherwise wouldn't get access to. So how much is too much though, guys, right? I mean, 150 webinars is a lot, 3 events, simultaneously a lot. Like if you're, giving advice to your partners, the MSPs out there selling to their end customers, where is the balance, right? How much is too much or how much is too little?
I would say, I typically say do a webinar per quarter. I see some of them, if you're going to tell a story and it's part of a series of webinars, you could do them monthly and you could stagger them, which I like. You start to, so then it becomes an educational kind of series of webinars. But I like to do, what I always say is you can go in parallel paths. You can do a live webinar once a quarter. Again, it becomes routine, but also little short videos that you put out in newsletters and things like that we can record. And, actually the first partner I did that with was Bob Coppage, who was on the panel yesterday, and everybody loves Bob, but it's his idea. He's like, let's block off an hour and we'll record 4 of these things. And then I've got 4 in my back pocket that I could send out. And I like that because it's top of mind. It's almost like a branding thing. They're like, oh, I'm getting some education. You share it on LinkedIn and all the rest. So that would be my cadence, probably quarterly live webinars with little short educational pieces, even if it's about something that's just in the news, industry specific. It doesn't take a long time. It's quick. That's my opinion.
I would just add to say, whatever you're going to do, be consistent with it. So make sure that people, like, they look to you for something. If you say you're going to do it, do it. I just have a partner out of Vancouver that is doing coffee and tech. And he has it set up with like 10 different vendors that they're doing these recordings, and then he will release them once a week. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time on the front end to get these done and edited and whatever, but then for the next 6-10 weeks or whatever, he has material that he can put into this YouTube channel of coffee and tech. And each time he posts those, it's going to have more momentum, more brand recognition. But if all of a sudden he stops and then does one 6 months later, you're going to lose that momentum.
Well, I also think like what you're doing right now, I think the conversations, I love the kind of panel style where you have a monthly one, but you're bringing in vendors, I did one the other day with a guy from Veeam. I couldn't be a more direct competitor, but it was fine. Like it literally, and it was fine. It was good. It was back and forth. And the message of it was like, look, for the audience, yes, there's situations where this partner was going to use Veeam. There's situations where they're going to use Datto. It shows that, hey, this is not a cookie cutter solution. I got to understand your environment. And if your environment calls for a Veeam, in this partner's opinion, we'll go with Veeam. I thought the message was good because it shows that, this MSP really is a partner. They're a consultant. They're going to put you in the solution that fits you, not what what makes them money. So I like the conversations. Bring in a cybersecurity insurance agent, bring in somebody from a state organization, FBI, whatever, and do that as a series, like the coffee and talk. It's like what we're doing right now. These conversations, I'll do a million click-through presentations if you want. I prefer to do these.
Agreed, 100%. I think Daz is probably on board with that too. So from a technology standpoint, clearly work from everywhere was just rapid fire. Clearly Microsoft 365 exploded. Clearly, whether it's Azure or AWS or Google Cloud bubbled up and people were moving stuff around. what is Datto's situation moving forward with the cloud workload, right? Like if it's Azure or Google or AWS or virtual workstation or virtual server, I mean, obviously Microsoft 365 continues to kind of, mature, right? And they keep on adding more and more to it, like Microsoft Teams, and such. So where is your product offering go to help solve that situation?
Well, I think it's definitely that kind of data sprawl, living in a lot of different places, is something that's critical, and we have those conversations all the time. In terms of roadmap stuff, that is definitely something I can't talk about because I don't want to get fired. But I mean, obviously, it's something that
there's definitely talk about, well, does the BDR make sense anymore if they're not there, right?
Mhm.
So obviously, something's got to be adjusted, right, to cover the other side. But hey, it's okay. We'll pay attention for the future. We'll see what comes down the line.
Updates coming.
All good. So where, from your perspective, and I feel like every other conversation I have now is very security focused. Zero trust and email and permissions and authentication and all that jazz.
Mhm.
Clearly this has to be coming up on your radar too, right? What's the conversation been like?
Yeah, I don't know, Desi, I can start with it. Yeah, I mean, that has been the main conversation. One of the things we talked about yesterday was, even the MSP doesn't feel like, hey, I'm not a security company, your clients view you as the security company. That's just the reality of it. So it's almost accelerating every MSP out there into acknowledging that that's what we're talking about. And that's really, I mean, it's a good hook to get people involved. You go and I mean, all these events I go to, the ASCII events, the Channel Pros, there's so many new vendors in the security space that they're great. I mean, they're winning awards and all this stuff, and I just don't know them, which is awesome. I mean, this is all new innovation. You probably see it too, George. I mean, even the vendors that sponsored our thing yesterday, Des, there was vendors I didn't know.
Yeah, same thing.
I'll give a quick plug to Christine Gassman. She's at a great new company, Cyberfish, which is a really cool tool. I said, Christine, just explain it to me in 30 seconds. And if you know Christine, she can't explain anything in 30 seconds, but she did it and it was good and interesting. So like, that's cool. I mean, that didn't exist in my world before the pandemic.
No, fair.
I think that's such a good point to point out why working with a managed service provider, and it's something we talk about all the time, but why this co-managed IT and why working with a managed service provider is so important is because, like DePalma just said, there's literally at events that we go to, there's vendors that we don't even see, and that's all we do is attend these events. So how can any technician have the time to see that there's even a problem and then a solution that solves that problem, let alone just trying to fix the problem? And it's such a big much to take. And so why the industry is going so quickly into that co-managed world, or we even see like the SMB industry that had a managed service provider, when they did the work from anywhere, when they did that transition, I see it in my conversations when we do MSP Rockstars, because you guys are rock stars. When we do those conversations, I talk to the end users, and the end users who worked with the managed service provider are like, yeah, it sucked, but it was amazing. I came in at work and I was home from working 2 hours later and everything was seamless. And I talk to other people and they're like, no, I never want to do that again. Please make it stop.
Yeah. But it's such a good tie into the co-managed piece, because there is the vendors that are out there. Think about being the in-house IT guy. I mean, even for an MSP to vet all these vendors and see if they integrate, that's a lot of work. Imagine being the one person handling an IT. You're going to go with the cheapest product or the one that's, the good, best sales rep and things like that. So when we have those co-managed IT conversations, that's one of the things that really is sticky, because they understand that. So security is a huge piece into opening those doors to co-manage, because they get that. They understand that, hey, I'm not buying a security product, because you got to think of it as something much more holistic. I just said on my webinar just now, and I'm not in the, I said, like, I don't sell cybersecurity, but what I'm telling you is you can't just say, hey, I made an investment in security last year. It's not a product that you're buying, right?
It's definitely a way of life, right?
Yeah, right.
Like somebody gets to lose weight, they're like, you got to change your lifestyle. It's kind of like that, right? So,
yeah.
I do get worried sometimes though that you know, there's very aggressive people who automatically like adopt a new label, right? First it was VAR, then it was CSP, then it was MSP. Now this MSSP, right? It's not a small word or term or idea. And I almost just, you know, tell people, hey, pump the brakes for a second. Don't misrepresent what you're trying to do before you get yourself in trouble a little bit.
Man, I can't agree with you more, because there was this huge wave of even going to these industry events, and they'd have like the keynote speaker would be, you got to be an MSSP. And it's like, slow down. Like, it's not everybody, just like not everybody can go be an MSP. It's funny because all the Datto sales reps think I could start an MSP. They say it all the time. Oh, I could start that, you know, and you're like, well, pump the brakes, buddy. It's not like you just dive into that, you know. So it's the same concept with that. I can't agree with you more. And a lot of vendors don't say that. A lot of vendors are like, oh, you got to get into this space. I'm with you. You got to be ready for it. You got to plan for it. You got to work your way up to that status, in my opinion. And a good way to do it is to work with an MSSP. You see a lot of that kind of collaboration, right? And then you learn, and you know, but yeah, you can't just dive in and say 2021, I'm going to be an MSSP. I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, go ahead, Des. Go ahead.
I've sat in a lot of meetings with different peer groups where Ryan Weeks, our CISO, will come in, and it's hilarious to watch. He is phenomenal. If you've never had a chance to watch him, you've got to sit down in a call. If you ever get invited, just sit down on a call with Ryan Weeks. He's one of the few people that I can see do a meeting with a peer group where he spends 3 hours, no slides, and it just is a fantastic conversation for 3 hours. It's amazing. But he will start the conversation where people will be like MSSP and all of these things. And then he just breaks it down to pretty much, is your house in order? And a lot of the time they have no idea. If you haven't started there, you can't be an MSSP, because do you even know if your house is in order? Do you know if your relationships with your vendors that you're using, is that in order? And then is your clients in order? And if you haven't done any of those steps, and then it gets scary because people will be like, well, I don't even know where to start. Well, you have to start somewhere, because you can't just end up at the end. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Ryan is such a good resource. He's so calm and just relaxed. And I'm like, if I was the CISO of Datto, my blood pressure, dude, would be so high. And he talks about these scary things, but he's just like so calming. Like, Ryan, I don't know how you do this. What kind of medication you're on, man? Because I would never be able to do. You couldn't pay me enough money.
Level heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
So what, you know, so you obviously guys talk to partners all day long, which is great. What's working? Where are people winning new business? Where are people succeeding and growing their business that, you know, are definitely the things people should be concentrating on right now?
I'm honestly, growth-wise, I'm seeing an uptick in referrals. So taking care of your own clients and getting referrals, expanding it that way. And there's a lot of, you know, it's not just waiting for folks to come in. It's legitimately coming in with a strategic plan of, I'm going to go and when I have my QBRs, I'm going to go in there with some prospects that I know this person's connected with. You could do some LinkedIn mining, simple things like that. One of the things I've been encouraging is start an advisory board within your own MSP. Every vendor's got their little advisory board. One of the reasons is you get good feedback. And also people feel, you know, they like to be part of that cool kid group. So start it, why not? And then you got these guys and you're getting good feedback. You're going to create clear stickiness with this client because they're on your advisory board. And then they're going to promote you, because a lot of, you know, business communities still got their hair on fire. So if you now get somebody to promote for you out there, like organically, I'm seeing a lot of that. These webinars, hey, you know, get your clients on there, ask them to bring some of their people on, you know, and it's worked. Good. So the referral piece is always what people say when how are you growing your business? Mostly referrals and recommendations. Well, how are you getting those? I just kind of wait for them to come in. You're missing opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. And that's why I go right back to the MSP Rockstars. I see that all the time, and these end users are literally willing to sing your praises, and they're so happy that the last 256 days or whatever it's been of their lives has been easier than their friend who owns that other company who doesn't work with the managed service provider. Having that conversation with them, they're probably going to recommend you to that friend who's been complaining about how horrible this whole experience was. And then to add on, think outside the box. I know that's not necessarily easy, but doing something is better than nothing. And then if you think you have an idea that's completely outlandish and then no one else is doing it, do it. Like the first people who did the wine tastings, that MDF we did had 150 people attending. That's massive. Or the first people who do the like the murder mystery nights, or doing something outside the box. Even I don't remember which state it was or when exactly, but it was when things were kind of opening up again, where this partner of ours I was talking to, and he's like, I've been going back to door, like to office, door to door. And he's like, people are so starved for interaction right now that, and he's doing it safely and all of those fun things, but he's like, people are so starved with interactions. I've been able to book more meetings going door to door than I have when people, because we're on, I don't know about you guys, but I have another call right after this. I wouldn't have time to have a meeting in between, but if you're going to catch me when I'm like in between, then yeah, I'll sit and talk with you for a few minutes, because it's way cooler to see a person in real life right now.
That's good. That's good. That's good advice. It's actually pretty straightforward things that you probably just never put in place, never put in action, never thought about it. It's actually pretty good stuff. So looking at, what are your partners telling you about what their feeling is about going into 2021? Are they feeling like things are, they have an idea, they're a little bit more on concrete ground rather than, earlier in the year where there was a little bit of quicksand going on? Like, generally, are people still cautious, or do you feel like there's a little bit more of a positive, vibe going into the 2021?
I would say overall it's a positive vibe. I will say it's amazing how it varies region to region, right? Different parts of the country have such a, there's such a differing factor when you talk to somebody from the Northeast as opposed to somebody out in the Southwest. So, but I do think overall, after that first wave of fear and all of the rest, I do think that there is a lot of optimism, because all of these companies were forced to adopt all these new technologies. That just means now they're bought in. And one of the themes of the presentation I did with Greg Jones yesterday was that SMBs are demanding more from MSPs. The expectations have gone up, which is a good thing overall. On the macro level, that's great, because if they're demanding more from their IT, that means they have to outsource it, right? I mean, that's a better reason to outsource it. So once you get your house in order, like Des said, and you get your plan of this is what I'm doing, and you have those examples, they're demanding more of it. It's more of a reason to reach out. So I think there is that optimism that the channel in general on that macro level is elevated. And then it's a matter of how you differentiate yourself. The conversation is becoming more not why do you need to work with a managed service provider, as opposed to why you need me to be your managed service provider, which is a great thing.
I like that. That's a good slight move in the other direction, but I like that. Des?
I agree with everything that DePalma just said right there, that the conversation is definitely shifting. Like I've said so many times, like people know they now need one. So now who are they going to work with? It's awesome. And then even thinking like, I know that, like, I don't want to not talk that there are people that aren't doing well. Of course, that's a thing that's happening. But the number of people that I talk to that are doing phenomenal. I had 2 different partners reach out yesterday who said that they've had the best year that they've ever had. And that conversation is happening every day. Yes, there's people who aren't doing well, but there is the entire industry. We were in our MSP Tech Day yesterday where there's people chatting about, can I acquire your company? I want to acquire your company. This is the era that we're in, that people just chat on a forum about acquiring one company. And that is happening across the board. So people are growing. These, as much as the SMB space is struggling, MSPs are doing pretty well. As much as I hope.
The merger and acquisition thing is big right now. That's another bit. It's a good, and even like some of the large MSPs are getting acquired, and we're seeing VC money come into the channel to purchase MSPs. That shows you how big the channel's getting when the VCs see the potential and they're buying up some of those folks. We did like a little peer forum at DattoCon 2019 about mergers and acquisitions, and it filled up immediately. So we're planning on doing something like main stage, because there's so many people that come to these events looking to buy and some folks looking to sell. And there's a lot of various things. I know some partners will go in and buy an MSP and gut it. A lot of others are saying, I want that owner to be on there. I want them to be my CIO. And we have a lot of those. So there's two different models of it, but I think there's just as many people looking to acquire as there are people that are looking to say, okay, let me get acquired. I still want to be in the space. I don't need to be a business owner right now.
No, fair. I mean, listen, it's, it definitely, do you agree with the sentence that, the pandemic fast forward the technology agenda 3 to 5 years?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that number came up. I think Marv Ray might have stole that from you. Somebody said that in one of our meetings the other day. It did accelerate things drastically out of necessity. And so, again, all awesome stuff for the channel. That's awesome that everything is accelerated. We've been ready for it. We've been waiting for the small business community to catch up. We're prepared for it in the industry for the most part, so let's go. You want something, come work with me and I'll get it done for you. So yeah, it's great stuff. And I think that's actually a good topic. Tell that to the end users. They get it. They probably haven't thought of it in that regard, but the way you just phrased it, simple, we're 3 to 5 years ahead of where we would have been had the pandemic not hit. You need to work with me, right?
That could be a good MDF deck. I was thinking, like, teaching your end users, could they do their jobs without technology, and how much technology are they not, or how much technology do they have to use in the last year and add on, and then where they should be. So it would be a good, like, to talk about, well, you already did this and we did that well, what are we going to do next, like that.
We should do something together, George. I mean, we should look at our partner list and say, hey, we'll do a panel style end user focused one. Let's do it.
Barks all of the time. What do what's going to happen internally at Datto, and vice versa? What are you hearing from your partners? Do you feel like, there's going to be, hey, virus vaccines out, everybody's good, everybody has their seal of approval, sticker, card, whatever it is. Do people go back into the office? Is it a 50-50? Is it no, it's not going to really happen. Everybody stay at home. Maybe just certain people are in the office, like the C-level guys. Like, what's your gut?
My gut, my gut is to say that most people, including Datto, are going to be slow to fully go back, to trust it. Let's get through a full season. And it's weird because Datto was very much nobody gets to work remote. I mean, just our team was remote. Everybody else had to be in the office. It was not like, oh, you're a sales guy, you can go move down to Florida and work from there. And so it is a big culture shift now that everybody's done it. And then we've been successful doing it. So, I not to speak for the C-levels, but my guess is it will be a slow process. It won't be a switch that gets flipped. That being said, on the MSP side, again, region to region, I know there's some regions that are like, I know some regions that are back to work now. And because that's just, their feeling about it. And I know a lot of them are just ready to flip that switch and say, I can't wait to get back into the office, which you never would have thought you'd be thinking, but so many people are saying that.
For sure.
I am really, really excited and just ecstatic about the work from anywhere world based on the hire from anywhere world. And that's something that I'm seeing. So I've got a lot of friends who've been laid off during this time, and the number of people that I've been able to connect people within the channel with different people. And I'm like, normally a channel vendor or even an MSP would not hire a Canadian to work for them. Why would you do that? They'll stick to these little small bubbles. And then I look, so Calgary, Alberta, we're oil and gas. So we've had a pretty crappy economy for several years. Our downtown core has been functioning at 40% capacity. That means there's a lot of people who are out of work, who are technicians for oil and gas, or they're doing all of these things. But if you won't hire someone, like, unless you want to uproot your entire family, and in Canada, let's face it, you got Toronto and Vancouver, you're not, unless you speak more French, because really we've got two major city centers that you can work in. Calgary isn't even that big for tech. And so there's all these people that can now work for whoever. And so many friends and so many great salespeople that I've been able to connect with vendors or MSPs, or even another Avic prior to this would never hire remote. And I was just talking to Caitlin the other day, and they said, yeah, we'll hire remote now. That's phenomenal across the board. I can't see that doing anything but good across the world, like across North America.
I agree. We've this idea has been happening since the early 2000s, right? This, hey, let's just hire smart people wherever they're at. But there was a huge push against this thought, right? Because how do you know? How do you track their performance? Do you know, right? Put all the fears behind it. Now it's like 180 miles an hour in another direction, right? If you're smart, if you're qualified, if you can do the work, let's figure out whatever the actual requirements are, right? Because I'm sure that, like if you're from Canada and you're working for a U.S. company, there's obviously different paperwork involved or whatever it is, right? But yeah, I mean, now it's, let's, like, our hiring is national, for example, not just city or regional, right? So that's,
Yeah, and that's like a leap of faith that a lot of businesses in all industries didn't want to take. Because you're in, like, it makes sense, but how do I know, this person? And we were forced to take that leap of faith now. Like, you were forced into it. So now you've got the data. Like, you know what? We were able to stay productive. And we could tell personality-wise who can do that and who can't. We know what to look for. So we were just like pushed over the edge. Nobody wanted to take that leap. And now that we've, did it, it's like, oh, we could do this. We were stay productive.
Especially for MSPs, that whole time zone shift could really benefit you, right? Instead of having to alter start-stop times, right? If people in different time zones, I've actually even seen MSPs partner up internationally, right? Let's say you're here in the US and you hire, you partner up with an MSP in the UK or an MSP in Australia, and now all of a sudden, you're covering both sides of the 12-hour, back end or front end of the day together. So
here's a spark. I didn't even think of that. See, I'm glad I jumped. I haven't even thought of it that way, but it's so true.
Yeah, I mean, and now all of a sudden you're not paying overtime. People aren't working late. Everybody has regular hours, right? I mean, there's stuff to hash out, but now all of a sudden you're not talking about, a language barrier. You're not talking about a knowledge problem, right? You could be using the same tools, the same software, the same integrations, and literally just put an agreement in place between two companies. So, I'm actually hearing this a lot now, right? People are starting to get hip to this follow the sun type, scenario. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's good. So, I can't stress enough, and Des said it earlier, but the value of not being afraid to talk to other people in the industry, right? I know peer groups are very, very constructive, right? Because, you're effectively signing an NDA in a lot of cases and opening up your books and talking about your challenges and hearing about other people's challenges. Not everybody's so keen to get into a peer group for whatever reason. Where would you suggest MSPs find other MSPs to just talk shop, at least online, I guess now?
Yeah, I mean, there are some great peer groups out there that most people I know, I don't know very many MSPs that join a peer group and regret it. And that's the conversation, but they are popping up in small pockets now. And a lot of them start on these, Facebook groups, and there's a million of them, or on Reddit, and they start to connect. I actually there's a sales rep at Datto. I'll give her a shout out, Megan Arena. She put together her own peer group with her partners. And I was shocked. And some of these are competitors. I mean, she covers one RIA, she covers the Pacific Northwest. And she asked me to join, and I didn't even know what she was asking me to do. And she had 16 MSPs on there. And we talked about sales and marketing. And so it doesn't have to be this formal thing. I mean, they're great formal peer groups, and, we can promote all of them, but it doesn't need to be overly formal. I'm seeing partner or MSPs do it on their own, just like-minded MSPs that they met through forums. That's one of the beauties of the channel, is there's so many, so much connection. And even though a lot of them are competing against one another, there's so much idea sharing. I've never seen it. I've been in banking. I've been in a lot of different industries. I've never seen an industry like this that's got that community that wants to go and learn from potentially their competitors. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm going to shoot the same horns. Peer groups are amazing. I think of them kind of like along the lines of hiring a personal trainer versus working out yourself. You can do it, but guaranteed with a personal trainer, you're going to do it better, and you're going to do it faster, and probably with less mistakes. So always peer groups are amazing. And then if you don't want to go that route, especially now, it would take you effort to not find a forum or an online session where you can interact with your peers. It would actually take more effort to not find it. I see it every day on every group that we're in, on every Facebook feed. There's something going on, even as an example like this. And then events. A lot of the events aren't necessarily paid events. So you might want to attend an event, but it's maybe not necessarily about the vendors, although of course come see the vendors, but it's not about the vendors. It's about those chats. Enjoy the chats, put out, hey, I'm looking for this information, and MSP, other partners and other MSPs are willing to talk to you and try to work through different problems together.
No, that's great advice. So like, hey guys, you don't have to go very far to figure out where people are talking. Take a little bit of time. I mean, don't let it take over your where you're not getting work done, but take a little bit of time, maybe in the evening. There's tons of groups out there. I mean, it's sometimes better to learn from other people who have been through it than to muscle through it yourself, right? I mean, I think generally everybody will agree with that.
I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I would say for myself, and I think DePalma will agree with me, but if you don't know whoever's watching and you're not sure, you can even reach out to us. I guarantee you, we have enough relationships with people within this industry that if you have a problem, I can put a call out. And usually, like, I had someone who had suffered from Mac problems, and I was able to find 2 people to connect him with to try to help him through this within minutes. And that's just because we do spend so much time. We have such a big network of partners and people and MSPs, and we're in every Facebook group. If you don't know about a Facebook group, let me know. I'll reach you, connect you with the right Facebook groups to connect with.
And there are MSPs that will tell you straight to your face, I will never work with Datto. But you could still go have a beer with them and still have these conversations. And I have plenty of friends in the MSP world that I've stopped even trying to pitch Datto. You know, I'd love them to be Datto partners. That's what I'm talking about with like the community of this. You get to know these people and you learn different ideas. And I don't mind sharing these ideas about marketing with other MSPs that sell whatever else. You know, it kind of lifts all boats or whatever that thing
Yeah,
is. You know?
I'm with you. So where do people find you guys online? I mean, obviously LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, I mean, Reddit, I guess. Like where do people run into you guys? How can they get a hold of you?
I'm on all forums, Desraie Thomas. You can LinkedIn me, Desraie Thomas. My email, I'll put it on the chat here, is des@datto.com. Super difficult email. Yeah, you can reach out to me at any point in time.
Des has got the best social media. Just to give her a plug, follow Des on social media because she does the best stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm at Michael_DePalma on Twitter. You could find me on LinkedIn. I put my email in the chat too. It's M DePalma. I'm not as big of a deal as Des, where it's just first name at Datto. I have to have M DePalma. It's like, yeah.
Have you ever looked it? I bet you could. I bet you it's there. I bet you could do it.
But Mike at Datto, I don't know.
No,
I only know of
DePalma.
Rob at Datto and ET. I got to upgrade my status here. But yeah, mdepalma@datto.com. Again, I have conversations. Even if you just want to chat about peer groups or whatever, I mean, we could just chat.
100%. Guys, I really appreciate you guys for coming on board. This whole session was recorded, everyone. You can find it at mspinitiative.com. Keep on following us Mondays and Thursdays. We're going to take a break for the last 2 weeks of the year and then fire back up once January starts again. These guys are great resources. Do not hesitate to reach out. If you don't ask, you can't get. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks, George. Let's do some webinars. Don't forget me.
Yeah, I won't. You got it.
All right, buddy. Good. I'm going.